Welcome to Orion Philosophy, where we explore, discuss and dissect areas of practical philosophy for use in everyday life. Today we're going to discuss why exactly we should care about practical philosophy and how philosophy in general can help us improve our day-to-day lives with regards to how we respond to the world around us, our resilience, our well-being, and even how we speak to ourselves and our self-talk. So generally on the channel, we go through concepts in Stoicism like amor fati, the dichotomy of control, how to build discipline, things like that. But today we're going to take a step back and look at how holistically philosophy can help us in our day-to-day lives. To illustrate this, we're going to go through three very simple things. We're going to look at input, process, and output, or response. Where input is the stimulus from the world around us. This can be anything like traffic, the economy, the behaviors of other people, or even things that we might be scared of or have negative reactions to. The output is our response to that stimulus, and the process is how our conscious and subconscious mind, made up of our beliefs, values, preconceptions, past experiences, and all these kind of things, filter any given input that we come across. And this process generally defines our response. So we take any given input, we filter it through our mindset, and then based on our mindset, we respond. So given this, if we want to improve our lives with the use of philosophy, where do we actually need to focus? So we know that our response is defined by the process or our mindset. The input or the world around us is largely outside our control, where Epictetus said some things are in our control and others are not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our actions. So if we really want to change the way we behave, the way we respond, and the way we react to the world around us, we really need to focus on this middle part. The process, our mindset, our beliefs, values, preconceptions, and the stories that we tell ourselves. Quite often as we age, grow, and develop, we pick up quite a lot of things from the world around us unconsciously. We pick up beliefs and values from other people that we don't necessarily question. We have experiences with people or with situations that may be quite niche, but we generalize those experiences across other experiences. So for example, if we get bitten by a dog as a child, we might think that all dogs are going to bite us, and we develop a fear of dogs. And all of this, whether we know it or not, really colors our experience of life. And if we get lucky and we grow up and we develop and all of this has been constructive and the values have been good and our experiences have been good, we might be in a situation where we have very little work to do here. But for the vast majority of people, we're all going to have some sort of negative experiences, values that we've just adopted without thinking about them, and generally things that kind of warp the way we see the world into something that's either not constructive, not accurate, or actually destructive and hold us back in some sort of way. And this is where practical philosophy can really help us. Because from philosophies like Stoicism, we know that the inputs and the outside world are completely outside our control, so we can learn to accept them. And we can see that our behaviors, our reactions and responses to the world are based upon our beliefs, our values, and all of the things going on in our subconscious and conscious mind. So given that these two things are true, we know where we have to focus. The question is how we focus on it. And this is where we can use something like the Socratic method. So if we look at how we can focus on this middle bit, first, I think we need to build some sort of awareness. It's very difficult to address any of this if we don't know what we're addressing and we don't know the map of the land, the lay of the land, and how we can navigate it. Secondly, we need to learn to question what we find after we're aware of it. And this is essentially Socratic questioning to find out whether our beliefs and values hold water and whether they hold up to scrutiny. It's very unlikely that everything that we believe is accurate and representative of the real world. So it's likely that after we have become aware of one belief or another and we start to question it, we'll find that at least some of what we believe either is in some way inaccurate or is altogether false. And then after that, we can reframe those beliefs. So after we've become aware of a belief, and we've questioned it and found that it doesn't hold water, we can then look at what we can reframe it with to be more constructive or more realistic. This can also be read as what do we believe, why do we believe it, and is there a better way? And some examples of this is perspective questions. So this could be something like, what could be an alternative to my belief? Is there another way of looking at it? How would other groups of people respond to my belief and why? And one of the most important questions is, what is the counter-argument? And does the counter-argument have any value? So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we can start to ask ourselves to figure out whether or not the beliefs that we hold are valuable and realistic, or if we could benefit from reframing them a little bit. And with Socratic questioning, this flow can lead to some pretty profound changes. And as we saw in the simple diagram at the start, whenever we change that center portion, the process and the mindset, we start to change how we respond to the world around us and the inputs that we get from the world around us. So if we do this enough and we become aware of our subconscious enough and reframe the beliefs that are either destructive or inaccurate, we can begin to shift our mindset from something that may be holding us back into something that's a lot more realistic and constructive for us. And over time, these shifts will build up in changes in our behaviors. They'll change our reactions to things. They'll change our responses to our environment. And because of all of that, they will start to change our life. Especially if we think that our lives are essentially the sum of all of our actions and behaviors. Socratic questioning can really have quite a profound impact in our life, especially when we pair that with philosophies like Stoicism. And the Stoics have given us a pretty good framework with which to kind of reframe some of these things and change some of our values and our perspectives on life to help us get to a happier and more resilient place. But all of this only works if we're honest with ourselves in the awareness stage. Otherwise, we're addressing things that might not necessarily be true or accurate. And a lot of how effective this is and where we end up in the end result is down to our values. So, for example, if we value comfort over everything else, we might hold on to falsehoods and narratives that stop us from accepting some uncomfortable truths. We might also hold on to narratives that suit and validate our own behaviors, meaning that we don't have to change anything we're doing because we're telling ourselves that we're still doing the right thing. Another example of this could be if we value the appearance of external success over everything else. In this case, we might push aside virtues in favor of the money in the bank, or we might push aside the way we treat people in favor of climbing a corporate ladder. So it's important to know your values while you work through this stuff, because they can and they will trip us up. So given all of this, where should we focus in our day-to-day lives? We can split this into 3 areas. We can learn to be aware of our emotions and responses in real time. We can notice how we respond to different situations, different kinds of situations, and different people. And we can pay close attention to situations and people and even places that cause fear, anxiety, frustration, and negative emotion. These will generally be called triggers. And whenever there's a trigger, and a trigger that causes specifically negative emotion, that is an indication that we need to focus our efforts somewhere and do a little bit of work on, 1, trying to find out what it is about that situation that's triggered us, and 2, the root causes of that trigger. And if we can deconstruct that and work on it piece by piece, those are going to be the big hitters with increasing our resilience, increasing our well-being, increasing our happiness. All of this requires a certain level of presence of mind and mindfulness to be aware of how our mind's working in the moment. And while this isn't an easy thing to do to start with, as we do it more and more, it kind of becomes second nature, and we can catch ourselves in the moment and make mental notes of things that might not feel right to us, things that cause triggers, situations and people that we don't necessarily react positively to. And we can file those away and work on them later. So while it might not necessarily be the easiest thing to start out as, it does get easier as you develop. And to wrap up, Viktor Frankl wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." If we can learn to find that space and use that space to be aware of how we're responding and reacting to any given set of circumstances or stimulus, and then find the underlying cause of those reactions and shift them into something more constructive over time, we really can change our lives for the better. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. When you realize this, you will find strength. And this is people is where our strength really lies. We can't control other people, we can't control the weather, we can't control traffic, we can't control the economy, but we can control what we believe about the world. We can control how we respond to the world. We can control what we value. We can control our perspectives and our biases. And given that all of these things contribute to our experience of life, we can learn to experience life for the better.